Anyway, yeah, there we go. Hey, it's telling me it's recording. Yes, I've got Lauren give me a nod. Yay. Okay, cool. All right. Hello to all the people at home. This is Contract A, and this is the week 10 tutorial. And I was just saying, we're on the downhill run to exams, and don't worry, don't you start freaking out on me, peeps, because AJ's on the case. I was going to say I have seen some people on Moodle exchanging tips about, no, Emily, don't. You're fine. You are fine. Fine. You'll get into the exam and you go, no, what was I panicking for? Now I can show my mastery. I've noticed that people are swapping, exam prep tips, and, that's all great. Doing your little mini case summaries, that's all great. I will start to give you really detailed exam prep stuff as of probably next week, okay? I might start giving you a few things to start thinking about next week, and then like the entire week 12 shoot is taken up with exam stuff. So, and I do give you reasonably detailed information about the areas that you need to particularly focus on. I'm one of those teachers that prefer authentic exams, authentic assessment, and my problem with the usual exam scenario is that it's the kind of scenario that lawyers just shouldn't really engage in. Do you know what I mean? Like, there is never going to be, even if it doesn't matter where you end up in practice, there's never really going to be a client that plops on your desk. Your colleagues might do this, but not clients, and go, blah, 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 here's a whole heap of problem facts. Now give me the answer. Straight away. And you're not allowed to go and search the internet. You're not allowed to look things up properly. You have one text. You got some notes. That's it. Go for gold. It doesn't happen. Well, it might, but it's the stuff of professional negligence claims. So, I try to assist you in terms of preparation as much as I can. In Contract B, if you guys are doing B with me, I'm teaching it in T2. Yeah, it's open book. You can take everything in. You can take your kitchen sink and your dog if you wish to. I actually even provide a set of contract terms prior to the exam that will be on the exam that you need to provide advice on. So I feel that that's, can you take, yeah, just get a handcuff. Nothing to see here, just bring it on the lecturer. Yeah, so, I try to give you as much pre-prep as we can. So, yeah, on the Gold Coast, yeah, quick drive. No, you can't take in your computer. No electronic devices. Unfortunately, the whole reason why we're stuck with this exam scenario is because, unfortunately, of the growing problem with contract cheating. And, the powers that be have dictated that exams are the best way to avoid that. Having said that, I've actually, cheating, contract cheating. But, for take-home papers, because we did used to set everything by take-home papers, but it's a big no-no now for first-year subjects at least. And I mean, that doesn't rule out cheating, really, does it? I was just going to say I was at QUT one time, and in the middle of my contracts for business people exam, and I was invigilating, and so I was checking the student IDs, and someone had got their friend to do their exam for them, because I looked at the person and I looked at the student ID, and I was just completely different. It was bizarre. So I don't know how much that poor person got paid, but I'm sure it wasn't worth the pain, because the whole wrath of the university descended upon them very rapidly. So you're never going to, Mike Ross, you're never going to rule out cheating, but this is the way that they seek to minimise it. So yay. Taking well-written, concise notes. Yep, don't rely on the study guides. Please don't rely on the study guides. And I will give you one big tip again this week as to why you should not rely on the study guides. So, yes, rely on the guidance I will give you and your own pre-prepped notes, because you'll be able to get to them quickly. And if you can, start doing timed IRACs, handwritten, old school, timed IRACs, because you'll be shocked at how little you can handwrite in the time. That was probably, I know, because I did all my undergrad exams at Bond, and they were, because they got all those fancy computer labs and stuff, and I was just able to do it on the computer labs. But then I got to my master's and I did it at London, where they're all, totally old school. And my exam papers were terrible. There was like squiggly lines going, here, please see page 10, go back to page 3, stars. Lucky, I will give you detailed questions and answers time for that in week 12. So it is just one scenario, yep. And then there's part A, which is the IRAC stuff, and then there's part B, which is the short answer questions. So there's, ample division of marks between those. There is an option for an essay. Yes, there is an option for an essay. Okay, so we'll do, much, much more in-depth stuff on this in week 12. Is it going to cover every type of thing covered so far? Yes, it's going to cover everything. I've taken Wilmot and I've taken a blindfold and a pen, and I've just picked randomly. Just
picked each page, yeah.
No. And I will definitely give you a heads up as to the areas that you need to prepare for. One thing I will say, and maybe you can clear this up for me, because I have a burning question. I've just marked contract B stuff till my eyes bled, and it struck me as amazing how many people did not read my instruction sheet. Did you guys all actually read my instruction sheet, or did you just you check the check boxes and emulate it? You just blindly, go tick, 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 sign, we're good. Because, it was amazing. I told the contract B peeps, read these 4 cases. These 4 cases are crucial, and I need you to argue on this particular point of law, which was misleading or deceptive conduct, and this other point of law, which was estoppel, which you'll discover later. And I had people answering from contract A material. I had someone talking about consideration. I had other people talking about the elements of a valid contract. I was quite shocked. So, I guess I'm hoping that you peeps are getting where I'm going to, which is when you're on the exam, the most crucial thing that you can do is read the instructions carefully. Yeah. Read the darn question, because I would love $1 for every time a student's gone astray just from not reading the question correctly. And normally I will highlight, I will put important things in capitals or bold, so that's something to look for. This paper I don't think I have as much, because I told that it freaks some people out. Anyway, I was always a fan of bold and underlining, and then someone said, don't use that. So I think I've taken it out, but read the questions really, really, really carefully, okay? All right, let's go. Let us look at ACL. This is hilarious because I'm going to tell you this before we get going. I marched into a jeweler 2 days ago and said, I bought this last month. Here's my receipt. It's broken already, but I don't want you to I don't want to replace it. I just want you to repair it. And they said, oh, no, we don't do that. Yay! See, this stuff happens in real life. And I had my kids with me. And I said, actually, I need you to repair this. And they said, oh, no, so-and-so does it just 2 doors up. And I said, well, actually, I'm a lawyer and I know my rights. And under the Australian consumer law, you're breaching my consumer guarantees. And then the moment I said ACL, it was hilarious. The whole demeanour changed, and he scurried off to get his little order book and wrote down all the details and took my receipt and took it for me. It was just hilarious. Anyway, so this stuff actually works, people. This stuff works. But the best thing is you can go in, and next time someone that says that to you guys, you can go, I'm a law student and I know my rights.
I'm already doing that at the moment. I bought something for $600. It was a prop replica from the movie Men in Black.
Yep.
And it broke after 1 use, so I'm doing the exact same thing at the moment. But the problem is they can't replace it because they only made 1,500 in the world. So
So what happens then? Oh.
At the moment, well, I sent her an email and said, well, look, I'm happy to keep it as long as you refund me, say, 2/3 of what I paid for it. But she's saying that she'll either give me a refund for it or store credit. So she's been pretty good about it.
Okay, well, that's good. If she gets, nasty, you know what to do. Stick your law school self on them. All right, okay. Let us stop chatting. Sorry, we're having too much fun, aren't we? Let us chat now. We want. All right. Here is the document. And let's go up here. All right, so I'll just bring up the problem facts. And we can go for it. All right. Let me put this here. I don't know why that thing stays over there. There we go. Okay. Resume share. All right. Have we got everything coming up now?
It's working perfectly today.
Woo! All right. Just in week 10.
I also like that it says bacon and music, two of my favorite things.
Right. I know. Oh, my kids are all meat lovers. And I was until my new partner is a vegetarian, so I'm kind of having an existential crisis. Anyway, I digress. So we have Teresa, who loves rock music and bacon. She wants to go to this festival, and she wants to eat bacon at the festival because that's what you do at festivals. That's what all the cool kids do in the mosh pit. So she bought her festival ticket in November. Someone's saying something on the chat box. And she ordered 5 kilos of bacon from her butcher. He gave her an order form. So immediately here, if you're doing your issue spotting, okay, let's do exam prep. So issue spotting, obviously, order form. What's that immediately ringing a bell of? Yes, thank you. Damien. William. Yes, standard form contracts. Okay, so filled out bacon under the order details. Fill in her name and address, signed the bottom. She didn't bother reading the T's and C's. I mean, that happens to the best of us. Okay, all she knew is she wanted the bacon. She paid in advance. Then 2 days before the music festival, promoters said that the headline act couldn't perform. She was really upset. The promoters promised everyone that the festival would still be great fun. She didn't want to go. The replacement was just a local band, not worth the money. Okay. She forked out for a premium seat. So she contacted them and asked for a refund. They said no, the festival's still going ahead. Teresa's very angry. Then she turns to bacon, turns to the consolation of bacon, and tries to pick it up. And he said he'd run out of bacon. So he figured ham was also from a pig, so it was just as good. She wants a refund from him. Butcher refuses and shows her the order form. So this is what I'm talking about, like in your exam. Where you see things like order form, you should immediately be thinking things like, you know, standard form contracts. What could the lecturer be trying to tell me by using the words order form? What issue is that lecturer pushing me towards here? Okay. One of the conditions was that if the ordered meat was unavailable, the butcher could unilaterally replace it with any other form of meat at his discretion. Sorry, this problem makes me laugh. Teresa didn't even know what unilaterally meant. She just wanted her bacon. Doubly devastated, she comes to you for advice. Okay. So there are a couple of things that we have to answer. Whether she's entitled to a refund from the promoter and whether she's entitled to a refund from the butcher. Okay, everyone on the same page with me? Can I get a hey yo? All right, so prep work. Let us do, we'll do the A first because A's before B. I was going to do B first because I think B's more fun, but we'll do A first. Okay. So one thing that I will reiterate to you that you might have picked up from today's discussion, and that is that up till, you know, at least halfway through the unit, we were just really looking at formation of contracts, weren't we? How to tell if a contract had been validly formed. And then we had a look at construction, you know, express terms construction. Then we had a look at implied terms. And now we're looking at the ACL. Now, it's a fairly radical departure. I'm not quite sure why it's structured such that privity is next week, but we'll discover privity next week. But here is the one little point in contract A where we get to think about remedies. Because generally speaking, remedies will be the province of contract B. That's where we get to discuss all the funky stuff in terms of, you know, rescission and termination and damages and injunctions and all of that kind of good stuff. But here there is this little blip on the radar for contract A, and we do actually get to talk about and think about the ability to get a remedy being a refund. So that's probably the first thing to note. The second thing to note is that this scenario, I think, is really indicative of how artificial law school problems can be. And however, it does, you know, cement in your mind, I guess, the various principles around the ACL and how useful it is. But what I want you to try and focus on as a result of our discussions, particularly on the unfair terms provisions, if you've read my videos, you'll know what I'm talking about. You need to always bear in mind that the effect of a term being, well, what happens if you look at a term like this and it looks to you to be unfair, does that give you, what does that give you? What does it do for you at the end of the day? I'm cutting to the chase a bit, but I just want to paint the picture before we go ahead and laboriously, nut everything out. Is someone saying something in the chat? Yeah, Damien's already plunged into it. Okay, the remedy is to seek a declaration under Section 250 that the term is void. Okay, it's not automatically void. All right, I have had some students after reading the study guide kind of think that the term was just void. It's not. You need to march off to court and ask a court to declare that provision void. What is the immediate problem that the everyday Joe faces with that?
I actually had a reasonably recent thing happen with the festival down this way, well, up this way for most of you, where they had to cancel it because of rain, even though it wasn't even raining on the day. They ended up refunding everyone, but that was a lengthy process to get the money back for that.
Yeah, so you're touching into the area that I'm concerned about, and that is the time that it takes to invest and the money. Okay, you've got to march off. Even if you go to a tribunal, if you're engaging a lawyer to do this stuff for you, it's a lot of money, and you're not guaranteed of an outcome. I think
I did mention that as well. I said I sent them an email saying that I was a law student, and they did process my refund quick.
Good stuff. I was just going to say, I think the best value, because even if the term is declared void, you still can't get compensation. It just means that they can't enforce the term against you. So the problem with that is then you've got to wait until they try and enforce the term against you after it's been declared void, and it's only then that you can get compensation. Okay, so this is why I say on the video, to my mind, tell me if you spot a hole in my thinking, but it's a bit of a toothless tiger if you ask me. I think the best way to use these provisions is just how Lockie said. It's to basically tell the supplier that you know what your rights are, and that if they don't comply, then you'll make a complaint to the ACCC. And I think that that's practically, I mean, you certainly wouldn't say that in an exam, but practically that's probably the best and quickest result you'll get as a result using the unfair terms provisions, for example. Okay, so bearing in mind the artificiality of law school tutorial problems, let's launch into a discussion of unfair terms. So taking the promoter and the whole festival thing, is the purchase, well, what is a consumer contract? That's our first question, isn't it? Where do we look at to find out whether it is a Damien said less than 40K. Anyone have a contrary view? Schedule 2, yes, we are looking at Schedule 2. Alrighty, what I want you to note is that this is not the general definition in Section 3 that applies for consumer guarantees. Okay, so consumer contract. Under sub 3, a consumer contract is a contract for the supply of goods or services or sale or grant of an interest in land to an individual whose acquisition is wholly or predominantly, so individual. Notice also, that means natural person, obviously. Who else, apart from natural people, can be caught by, this is a bit of a trick question. Anyone else? Or is it just individuals? Corporations? Anyone have any companies? Okay, I will leave you to ponder that. We'll go and see. Oh, I've got people arriving for my Contract B tutorial. Okay, normally a consumer contract will be to an individual. You do have small businesses that are also catered for under the small business component of this regime. Okay? So, generally speaking, a consumer contract will be someone that buys for personal, domestic or household use or consumption. Now, as Wilmot says, this is, get a load of this. It's a subjective test. What? That never happens. Okay, so, and how do they know that? Because it's not measured by the ordinary type of use of that item as it is in section 3. So there's a couple of differences in terms of the definitions here that you need to be aware of. Okay, so an individual acquiring wholly or predominantly for personal, domestic or household use. All right. The next question is, do you think the festival tickets were acquired for personal, domestic or household use? Small biz. Oh, Valentine. Sorry. Yes, I saw that. Small biz. Excellent. Yeah, of course it was for person. She wasn't like a ticket scalper or anything, was she? Yeah, okay, cool. So then, is this a standard form contract? Where do we go to look and see if something is a standard form contract? I'm just sorry. I've still got my 2-screen issue, so I look like I'm split personality here. But anyone know? Anyone? I'll do a Ferris Bueller. Anyone? Section 23. Let's go here. All right, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to share my whole messy screen. Welcome to my messy mind. All right. I was going to show you quickly. There's no definition of individual, but it will usually be a natural person. When they're using person, it can mean either natural person or corporation. And generally speaking, the reason why you would think it diverts to natural person would be because it has to be acquired for personal, domestic or household use. Okay? Personal, domestic or household use. I don't know a definitive answer as to whether you could squeeze a company in there. Perhaps it was a private company and you were acquiring for private, personal, domestic or household use. But anyway, I just wanted to highlight that difference for you. Then we'll run down here to section 27. Okay. All right. Standard form contracts is the provision that we need to go to in working out whether or not it's a standard form contract. Have a look at this, baby. I'm not sure that we've encountered a presumption. We have, because there used to be presumptions in terms of intention to create legal relations, isn't there? So you have encountered presumptions before. So this is, there in terms of I2CLR, it was presumptions in relation to that, and they were to the effect of whether or not they actually had the requisite intention. So, you know, if it was a family dealing, it was presumed not to have the requisite intention. Here, we have a presumption that any contract that's complained about will be a standard form contract that falls within this regime unless the other party proves otherwise. Can you see what that's doing? It's making it easier for the consumer to jump over the necessary hurdles. Okay? So really good assistance, because if you don't have the benefit of that, then you've got this mucky process of court determination. Okay? Court may take into account all these, you know, and basically anything it wants to, but it has to take into account all of this stuff. There we go. Asymmetrical bargaining power. You can see there's a theme here, can't you, through the unfair terms provisions. If you've already had a little look at the text and stuff, or you've had a little look at my video. Asymmetrical bargaining positions is just a big red flag to the ACCC. Whether the contract was prepared by one party, whether it was on, and this is a classic, take it or leave it terms. That's a classic, isn't it? Have you ever been to Telstra and got the terms and conditions for your mobile phone? Yes, I don't think they'll enter into negotiations about that with you, or not willingly anyway, I don't think. Optus, yeah, I know, right? And they're usually in like 2-point font. It's hilarious. Yeah, Telstra. Whether one party, another party was given an opportunity to negotiate. Again, they're all flip sides of the same coin, aren't they, really? Whether the terms take into account specific characteristics. If you've read Wilmot, they note that there's this nice little question about, well, if the standard form contract leaves this little box that allows you to take some specific characteristics into account, is it going to avoid the whole classification as a standard form? Probably not. I wouldn't assume so. You've got the benefit of the presumption to start with, and they're going to have to do a whole lot of hard work if they come to court trying to prove that a 20-page document in 2-point font is actually not a standard form, even though it's on take it or leave it terms, just because you've got a little box allowing one party to fill in some characteristics. I don't think the court's going to let you around that. Okay, so the next question then. Now, let me just test you out because you're my guinea pigs. Can you now see my Word document? Sweet. Okay, so we've looked at whether or not it's standard form. Exempt terms. So you've got these weird little terms that are exempt. Remember, let me go down here and see, because I don't want you to see the next bit. So marine salvage or towage, charter party, carriage by ship, constitution of a company or things like companies, small business contracts that fall outside the regime, all those things are exempt. I don't think the festival tickets will fall into something like marine salvage. I don't think the contract is exempt. So you go, is it a consumer contract? Is it a standard form contract? Well, you've got the benefit of the presumption there. Is the contract, the whole contract, exempted? No. So then you get a little bit more specific and you say, is the term itself exempted from the regime? Okay. What were the exempt terms? And these were fairly common sense, actually. The exempt terms. Anyone got any ideas? Subject matter? Upfront price? Is this ringing bells? Sorry. Terms defining the main subject matter. Now, let me pop down here again. Why can't you complain about a term describing the contract subject matter as being unfair? Why is that outside the regime? I want you to think about this. Oh, thanks, Sammy Lee. I just looked over to my other screen and saw your more than able responses. Anyone have any idea as to why you can't complain about a description of the subject matter? Because if you could say that that was unfair, it's not something either party have to actually do. Well, it's something that one party will probably have to provide, but if you think about it, it's kind of a policy thing. Because if consumers could say, no, I didn't like the way they described that subject matter, really what they could be trying to do is use this regime where they want to get a legal excuse for a change of mind, where they just want to complain about something because they've changed their mind. And that doesn't make things, unfair, does it? So it's avoiding people coming in into the ACCC and saying, you know what, this contract is actually describing the wrong item here. I actually wanted that item. So this description of the subject matter is unfair, okay? It's fairly sensible, really, when you think about it, isn't it? Terms setting the upfront price. I don't think that caused anybody any issues. That's not hard to understand, is it? Did anyone have any worries about that? Contract out, yeah. The only thing that you probably need to flag is consideration that's contingent on the operation of other events. Okay. So if you breach the contract, you will pay 75% penalty. That payment of a penalty would be dependent on you breaching. So wherever you have a payment that's contingent on something else, that's going to fall outside your upfront price. Okay? Terms required or permitted by law. I think they give quite a good one in the text. There's this motor vehicles legislation that gives you 1 day cooling off period after a motor vehicles, I think it's auction. And you can't, for example, complain that that's too short a time because that has to be in there by virtue of the legislation. Okay, so I think that's all more than sensible.
Can I ask a quick question, AJ?
Yeah.
You know how I was talking about the music festival scenario that I had recently? They had a thing in their actual terms that said, we reserve the right to cancel and not refund you. That would have been thrown out in court, wouldn't it?
Ooh, naughty.
Yeah, they did refund us, but they did have a thing that said we reserve the right if we cancel and they basically just said we don't have to refund you. It's at our discretion.
Oh, tell them about Section 64. Gosh darn it. Yeah, there are a lot of people. You know what? And I heard, and I have to say, there are a lot of times that traders will keep these things in their T's and C's because there are a lot of gullible people out there that won't complain. And if they have a ratio that makes keeping those provisions in worthwhile, they will do so until they get a critical mass of people complaining.
Yeah, that'd result in like a class action against an unfair term or something along those lines, wouldn't it?
Well, it would probably involve a lot of people running to the ACCC getting fed up and taking regulator action.
Are you guys familiar with the whole Fire Festival thing that happened over in the States?
Oh, no, I never really got my head around that. Was that a cancellation of a whole lot of... they couldn't get licenses or something?
No, they charged people like $9,000 to $12,000 for some of the tickets, and when people turned up, they'd been promised luxury villas and chef-cooked meals. When they got there, they were tents, and the meals were like processed cheese sandwiches.
Yeah, but that would be a luxury item if you were born and bred an Inuit that had only eaten fresh whale meat before.
Yeah, no, it was a bunch of false advertising, and he's in jail for 6 years at the moment for wire fraud or something else. But But there's a class lawsuit going on in the States about that at the moment.
Yeah, no, festivals. Who would have thought that festivals were such a litigious area of commerce?
Who has 12 grand to go to a festival?
I know, right? I know. The next one is the term itself unfair. So we've jumped over the hurdles. It's a consumer contract. It's a standard form contract because we got the presumption in working in our favour. It's not an excluded contract. It's not an excluded term. So then we look at the nature of the term itself and we ask ourselves, is it unfair? Okay. You need to look at, I'll make you work for your money. All right. 3 criteria. The 3 criteria. What are the 3 criteria? The criteria. I don't know why I'm singing. I'm crazy. I've got marking fever. Okay, significant imbalance. Firstly, whether it's necessary to protect the legit interest. Reasonably necessary is the term you need to worry about there, and legitimate interest. Significant imbalance and causing detriment. Alrighty, let's unpack those briefly. Significant imbalance. What does that mean? Because here's where I did a little bit of updating on the study guide last week. Let me flip over to the chat box here. Oh, look at you people answering all that stuff. Sorry. I should put the chat box over here. Beautiful. Significant imbalance. Now, this could mean 2 things. It could mean that it's significant in the sense of it's not minor. It's not something that's so insignificant that you shouldn't have to worry about it. Do you know what I mean? It just means it's, I'm still confused as to which term was potentially unfair in the first issue. It was the term allowing them to change the headline act. Damien. Where was it? There's a replacement act. That was the local band. They said they were still holding the festival and still delivering. So they are claiming, I don't think there was anything more specific than that, Damien. Yeah, so they're basically saying we are allowed to unilaterally replace the headline act. Whew, where did that go? Okay. All right, so let's go down here. Significant imbalance. All right, so it could mean something that's just of note, or it could mean something that's significant. Could mean significant in the sense of substantial or sizable. What are the differences from a policy point of view? If you said a term was going to be unfair if it caused a significant imbalance in the parties' rights and obligations, and significant imbalance just meant like something that was, not insignificant, but it's noteworthy, okay? So this term may allow you to claim that it's unfair if there's just like a little imbalance, something that's of note, or a substantial imbalance. What's the difference there? What is at stake? Oh no, I've lost my chat box again. It's gone. It's gone, I tell you. Here it is. Old-fashioned rip-off. Yeah. Remedy? No, it's the same remedy. It just goes to determining whether or not you're going to qualify as an unfair term. You see, if you said you can potentially qualify as an unfair term, and one of the gatekeepers to determining that it is an unfair term is very easy in terms of it just had to be a little shift in the parties' rights, little imbalance, it can potentially let a lot more people claim, can't it? But if you say it has to be a significant imbalance, then you're making it harder for the consumer to jump over that hurdle, aren't you? Okay. So here, fine drafting differences like this and the way that the courts interpret the legislative terms is super important, because it really works out in practice how tough or how easy the legislation is for the consumer. Okay, yeah, so the weaker party is taken advantage of, yes. So we've seen, and this is the little update that I put into the tutorial, the old decision that was in your study guide was from Morris. That's now basically being chucked out by Kavanagh in the Jetstar case, saying he respectfully disagreed. And significant is now to mean something not too distant from substantial. And I can see good sense in that, because every darn consumer would be able to fit through the other test, really, wouldn't they? And that's been applied subsequently. So your next hurdle is it has to be reasonably necessary to protect a legitimate interest. Now, here, before we unpack that, we need to note we have another beautiful presumption. Okay? The legislators providing the consumer a helping hand on this point. So they've made this gate not quite so easy, because there has to be something fairly significant to actually complain about. I can understand that. But then you have to show it was reasonably necessary to protect the trader's legitimate interest. That can involve some fairly heavy argument, and it can get bogged down. So if you can give the consumer a helping hand by providing a presumption, great. It just moves the legislation along in the consumer's favour, really, doesn't it? Causing detriment, well, that's normally not going to be too much of an issue. So would a term, do you think, would a term allowing the festival promoter to unilaterally change, there's that word again, to just change the headline act at their whim, do you think that creates a significant imbalance in the parties' rights? Yeah. There was a big kerfuffle a little while ago that I heard from one of the other lecturers who did this unit last term, and they paid to go and see the Rocky Horror Show because they wanted to see Craig McLachlan in the lead role. He's been in the news for bad reasons of late, but this was when he was, you know, popular. Yes. And then they switched him out and put some no-name in there, and everybody complained. Do you think that kind of term, I think it's a fairly significant, because if you had paid, it's a bit like that US festival, isn't it, really? You know, if you've gone there specifically and you've paid a lot of money, because the problem does say that she's paid a lot of money here for premium seats. She can see other acts, but yeah, the headline act, okay, I think she'd probably get over the significant, like not to have made the purchase if it was a different act. Yes, that's true, William. She seems to be fairly avid as to seeing whoever this headline act is. So we've got the benefit of the presumption on the second element that the court has to consider. Third element, detriment. Well, yes, she's not going to see her headline act, is she? I want you to notice this grey list. There was some uncertainty about this during the week. What does it mean by saying it's a grey list? Not black, not white. That's right, exactly. It's not black in the sense of, yeah, thanks. It's not prohibited. These terms are not prohibited, so they're not black. They're not expressly permitted, so they're not white. They're somewhere in between, and the fact that they are on this list should cause you some pause for reconsideration if you're a trader, or at least making sure that you think it's squeaky clean. Because any of this stuff will be a red rag for the ACCC. That's why courts don't like to intervene in contract issues. The whole area of contract is quite pernickety, really, isn't it? So here, do you think that there is, do you think that potentially might be Teresa's issue with the promoter? If it is, you still got to go right ahead and consider that clause in terms of those three elements. Okay? Just because it's on the grey list doesn't mean that you can automatically say, yeah, that's unfair. You've still got to look at the clause in context of the contract itself. All right? So, potentially, I think, and we'll get to something that I've spotted just before, and I think somebody else picked up this little resource that I've found here. Remedies, as I said, yes, the question that we had to answer here was, can she get a refund? Well, yes, but it's quite a circuitous route, isn't it, really? She's got to have a court declare the terms unfair, and then that's void. So then she needs to march back to the promoter. She needs to say to the promoter, this term is now unfair. What does that mean in practice, though? Okay, so they can't enforce that term against her. Well, what does that mean? Do they have to provide the headline act that they promised just for her, despite the fact that they can't get him in the country because he's had drug offences? Can you see what I mean? You got to look at what this does for your client. She can seek compensation if they continue to try and apply or rely on the void unfair term. Then you can look at compensation under 237, and yes, under 243 it does allow you to get refunds. But yeah, it's pretty cack-handed, really, isn't it? Has anyone had a little look at 237 and 243? Because they're funky and I want to take you to them. In fact, it's kind of weird because there's a contract A, contract B crossover tonight because I'm doing ACL with them as well. So 237, sorry, I hope you're not getting car sick from me scrolling through all this stuff. Okay, so here's your compensation orders. Notice that it's the person that can apply or the ACCC. All right. So on the application of this person who suffered loss because somebody is constituting, applying or relying on or purporting to rely on a term that has been declared an unfair term, then the court can make such orders as they think appropriate. And for that, for the orders that the court may make, look at section 243, right? So then we truck on down to 243. I love this provision. Love, love, love. It's awesome. Okay, without limiting. So immediately we know that this is a what kind of provision? Stat interp people, go. And go. Yay, it's too late. Yes, it is inclusive, not exhaustive. So these are just examples. So the court can be as creative as they want, and they are, believe you me. So you can declare things void under 243. It can either be void ab initio or just after such date as specified. There you go. There's something a little bit different, a little bit unusual. They can vary contracts. I don't know why I clicked on that. Oh, there we go. They can vary contracts. Here, look at this here. Refund money. Okay, so under 243, yes, she can get a refund, but it's a very circuitous route. Okay, so I'll leave that up to you as to whether or not you think that this is a fun little provision to use. Note, and this is where I said, I think, you know, in reality, you'd probably just run off to the ACCC or you'd go to the promoter and say that you're going to go to the ACCC. There's this nice little pamphlet online, which I think somebody mentioned on Moodle, but I didn't want to steal your thunder. So they've looked at this provision, obviously, because, you know, festival tickets are fairly litigious, as we've talked about. If they give the promoter unfettered discretion to change the event, material changes include changes to what the consumer has contracted to see or hear, even if caused by events beyond the promoter's control. Now, these are all the reasons why you can't exchange your ticket or get a refund, but change to the headline act, main star, is likely to be a material change. From multi-star or multi-feature events, a fair outcome will balance factors such as how the event was promoted and the relative prominence given to the artists. Okay. I think that she could probably jump over the hurdles, but query whether it would be worth the effort. And you'd probably, like I said, just go straight to the promoter and say, hey, I'm a law student. I'm your worst nightmare. All right. Now, you could hop over those same hurdles in relation to the bacon and ham if you wanted to do so. All the same law that applies. All right. I will leave that to you. And I think that this is a prime example for those people that are doing timed IRACs. You could sit down, now that we've gone through the law. I'll pop this up before I go on leave tomorrow. I'll pop this up and see if you can just trot out a little IRAC for the bacon and ham, okay? Because you've got all the law there. The thing that I wanted to concentrate on with the bacon and ham, though, instead of doing the same old thing all over again, was just cover off the consumer guarantees, because these are really fun and really useful. Okay. Oh, approximately how many words? Look, you know what? I would be doing timed IRACs of about half an hour to 45 minutes. Okay? Probably. I wouldn't do it in word count. I'd just do it in half an hour to 45 minutes, and I'll do it actually old school with a pen and paper. Wow. I can hear the fingers cramping. All right, is this a consumer contract is the first hurdle you've got to get over here. Now, note that we've got the different provision that we need to think about than the unfair terms provision, okay? I don't remember how to use pens. I know, right? It's so old school. Might as well bring like a piece of stone and a hammer and chisel. Okay, so this is the classic formulation. I only know iPad. So you're acquiring as a consumer. Here's your magical figure, 40 grand, or ordinarily. See here we've got the ordinary reference. So we know that this is an objective test. It's the kind of thing most people would buy for personal, domestic or household use. Right? Here we've got person, see? Not individual. And then we've got this odd little exception. I would love to know how that exception, I think it's hilarious. Oh, hilarious. Trailers or vehicles. Maybe there's a large trailer lobby in Parliament. I don't know. Okay, yes, services. Acquiring goods as a consumer. Acquiring services here. There we go. Less than 40 grand. That being said, oh yes, I understand. You got to pump those muscles in your arm. So you got to look at whether there's acquisition as a consumer. Then you look at whether there has been a sale, exchange, hire, purchase, lease, whatever. Well, there's been a sale here, hasn't there? So I don't think, the bacon and ham thing is probably about $25. Oh, 5 kilos, maybe it'd be $50. It's for personal consumption. It's a sale. Is it goods or services? Well, we know it's not ship. Well, actually, ships, aircraft, and all that stuff is included. Services, very broad again. There's very little in the way of exclusions here. Is it a consumer contract? Mustn't be acquired to use up in commerce. So they're really serious about it being personal, domestic or household use. For services, it's got to be less than 40 grand, personal, domestic or household use. Okay. Does it breach a guarantee? What do you think, peeps? Any of those? Yeah. Tammy Lee says Section 56. Damien says Section 56. I think Section 56 as well. I think that's the best. Correspondence with sample. Is anyone old enough like me to remember actually going to the butcher's and them giving you a piece of Devon, a piece of Fritz, we used to call it? I'm from Adelaide. When I was a little girl, my mum used to take me to the butcher. He'd give me a little piece of Fritz as a sample. Hoping that I'd nag mum. It's still Devon here. Yeah. So, but it's not correspondence with sample, is it? I think it's probably Section 56. So then with your consumer guarantees, you've got to work out if it's major or minor, don't you? Moon meat! Oh, that's hilarious. I'll ask you the backstory to that next week when we have our assignment discussion. That's great. I in circles like the moon. Okay, so for major failures, you're going to look to Section 260. And this is where someone, in fact, I think it was Valentine, said, you've got to look at whether the person would have still bought the stuff, if other people knew that defect was there, would other people have bought it or, not bought it. So, and it's substantially unfit for a normal purpose, unfit for disclosed purpose and can't be remedied. Here we are, the big one that I've highlighted. It departs in a significant respect from your description or your sample. So we know it's the bacon issue would be a major failure. It's a bacon failure. Woo, woo, woo. Okay, so remedies. We've got the R times 3, remember? You've got to reject first, and then you get the choice. Refund or replacement. Okay? Now we've got to look at the exceptions there. So she can't reject if the rejection period has ended. So she's taking the ham home and it's gone off in her fridge and then she decides to take it back. That's a no-go, right? If they're damaged or if they're somehow attached, I think she's going to be attaching ham to personal property. So after that, she can seek her refund. Da, da, da. She's just got to take it back or hand it, do it right there. Sorry, this is a major failure. Go and look at section 260 of the ACL. Here's it, it's back. I want my refund. Nice. Simple. They know, the trader knows that they got to comply with this stuff or they will fall foul of the ACCC. This is the beauty and the pleasure of the consumer guarantees, I think, because most traders are acutely aware of the trouble they will find themselves in if they run foul of this legislation. The ACCC has an awesome reputation as a very, very vigorous defender of consumer rights. I don't know if you looked at the Valve Corporation case. Did I even put that up? I don't know. There is an awesome case that got handed down very last thing of 2017, and in 2018 the High Court refused special leave to appeal. Was this massive online gaming company called Valve Corporation that used to run this website for Steam software, and you could buy gaming software from the website. Apparently the graphics and stuff were fairly average. People got a bit annoyed. And this big Washington-based company had excluded many things, including, refunds. We won't do in all of their terms and conditions online. So many people here got fed up with it. They ran to the ACCC. The ACCC took a regulator action against this company. This company just did everything wrong. They ticked the first instance judge off incredibly. They took every single possible point of law that they could. There was about 5 different cases, on preliminary points. They argued that they weren't trading here because they were online. That was really significant. They argued that our consumer law didn't apply to them. That was really significant. So it was bound up with a lot of extraterritorial issues and how far our ACL could reach to online traders and to, the companies based in another jurisdiction. And we won. They got a $3 million fine and they were denied special leave to appeal to the High Court. So, and it's hilarious. If I have 5 minutes, I guess we've got 5 minutes. I'll see if I can take you to the Valve here. Steam terms. It's actually quite hilarious because I wonder if they've changed it. Yes, no, they haven't changed it. Look at this. Look at what this company has done. It's just hilarious. For Australian subscribers, this section does not exclude, restrict, or modify the application of any guarantee, right, or remedy, blah, 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 under the ACL. Ta-da, ta-da. Extraterritorial reach of the ACL. And now, folks, you know why the ACCC has such a great reputation, as I said, as defender of consumer rights worldwide. This stuff was in the news. New Zealand's not too far behind. Their legislation is quite similar to ours. The New Zealanders nick all of our good legislation drafting. Apologies to any Kiwis out there. But this is the importance of this stuff. Serious stuff. But very useful. Anyone have any comments, queries, doubts, questions? No? I'll stop sharing now. That was fun. I hope you're ready to march in and do battle next time someone crosses you with a consumer guarantee. Yay. Okay, folks. Well, I shall end the torture here for you. Have a pleasant evening. And next week is our last substantive cheat. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh. So I will see you then. Some people, including Lockie, I will see you at a different time next week. If you want to make in any appointments to come see me just for chats about your assignment or about exam prep, you know where I live. We can set up a Zoom. I realise, as I said before, this is kind of the stressy end of term, so I'm here to do your hand holding. And just send me an email. We can set something up. Okay? Cool. Bye, folks. Have a good evening.